Hello and welcome to IASPrimers. My name is Shubhashish and in this video we'll be comprehensively covering the Ukrainian crisis that has been there in the news quite prominently. Now, before we go ahead with the analysis, I have a question before you, and this basically tells us what all things we are covering. So explain the recent political developments on Ukraine-Russia border. So recent political developments and its impact on world politics with a special reference to India, right? So these are the things that we need to cover when we are doing this analysis. So first things, when we are writing an answer on this, first of all, we need to know what is happening. So what is happening? There is an imminent possibility of Russian invasion of Ukraine. And why do we say so? Because there is a build-up of Russian troops along the Ukrainian border. But that doesn't mean that it is going to lead to invasion. We say this because in 2014, Russia did invade into Ukraine by means of war of Donbas. So this is quite a possibility. And naturally, USA cannot be a mute spectator. So USA has warned Russia and it has offered military aid to Ukraine, that in the possibility of a Russian invasion of Ukraine. And USA never, especially when it comes to the European issue, USA doesn't go alone. It is you mobilizing the NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It is a group of countries. It's a coalition that is woven by the United States of America against Russia. It's a military alliance. So NATO has been mobilized now. So this is essentially what all is happening. Now the other question is, if we have to explain what is happening and we have to explain this issue, we need to say, why does Russia want to invade into Ukraine? So this should be the next part, why. And coming to the why, let's see the interest of Russia vis-a-vis Ukraine over here. So first of all, I told you that in the year 2014, there was an invasion of Ukraine. There was the war of Donbas. Here is the region you can see. This is the Donbas region. So they acquired this territory. They created a hybrid war, which hybrid means that civil population, a civil unrest was created, as well as military was mobilized. So they entered into Ukraine and they acquired Crimea. Then in 2014, there was a meeting known as Minsk Agreement. This is the capital of Belarus, Minsk. And here France and Germany negotiated with Ukraine and Russia. So Minsk Agreement took place and Russia decided to withdraw. Clear? But they withdrew, but they kept under its control the peninsula of Crimea. That means they had their eye on the Crimean peninsula. So why is Crimea important? So one is this. Then the other issue is, how could they create a civil unrest in a different country? This is the second question. So these two points tell us two very, very important contexts as to why Russia is interested in Ukraine. So first of all, let's do the civil unrest part. So this is the Donbas region. So if you can see this thing marked in yellow, this is essentially Russian speaking population. These are the ethnic Russian population. So they are sensitive to Russia. They are aligned with the Russians culturally, socially, religiously. They are aligned. So they are sensitive. And here they are a minority in Ukraine, but with Russia they are a majority. So they have an interest to be part of Russia. And furthermore, the Russian population is also sensitive to what is happening to the ethnic Russians in a different country, right? That is true for any country of the world. So this is it. So this is why they were able to create a civil unrest, and they also mobilized the military at the same time. It's a very quick event that took place in 2014. Now coming to the Crimean Peninsula. Now Crimean Peninsula provides Russia access to the port of Sevastopol. This has nothing much otherwise, no strategic significance. It's just that it provides Russia the access to a port in the Black Sea region. And they want it very badly. Why? Because Russia does not have all-weather navigation. They don't have all-weather ports. Look at Russia, such a big country, but sadly they do not have all-weather navigation. Here is the Arctic Circle. It's very, very cold. It's frigid zone basically. So in the winter months, it is not navigable. To the east also, there is the cold current, so not possible. So it is only here where they actually get an opening over here. So one is this all-weather connectivity, and then from Black Sea you enter into the Mediterranean Sea, and from Mediterranean Sea you have access to West Asia, you have access to Africa, and India also becomes very close. So basically the Indian Ocean region. So from that perspective also this is very, very important. Right, so we have 2 points now, the Crimean Peninsula and the ethnic Russian population, ethnic Russian. Now one more thing with reference to Ukraine is the capital Kyiv, and the spelling is a bit different. So the capital Kyiv, it is believed that it is the cultural center of Russia. It's believed that the Russian culture that originated from the capital of Ukraine. So therefore Kyiv is very close to the heart of Moscow. By Moscow I mean Russia. So they would like to get it back, and in fact it was initially part of the Russian territory. It was part of the USSR in the pre-Cold War, during the Cold War times. Right, so these are two issues. So we have Crimean Peninsula, its importance, and the ethnic Russians, and the importance of Kyiv as the cultural hub of Russia. Now the other issue over here with reference to Ukraine is geopolitical, geostrategic. So, if you look at the physical map of Russia, these mountains that you can see, mountains play the role of a barrier. So these mountains are known as the Carpathian Mountains, and they act as a barrier. So kind of these mountains are a barrier between Europe, and then there is Ukraine and Russia, and after the mountains comes the flatlands. So for enemy, all they had to do is cross the barrier and then they enter into the flatlands. So even in the medieval times, let's say in the times of Napoleon, etc., when they invaded from Europe into Russia, this was the route that they used. So moment they cross the Carpathians, it becomes very easy to enter into Moscow. So Ukraine is a matter of concern with reference to Russia. So now when we are speculating a war between Russia and Ukraine, so first phase could be that Russia wants to secure its Crimean Peninsula. So maybe they are looking at just cutting off access of Ukraine from the Crimean Peninsula. So presently this is all Ukraine. But if this becomes part of Russia, if this territory becomes part of Russia, then Ukraine's control over this area gets affected. So they will be more easily be able to defend it. The other phase could be that other possibility could be that Russia will take over the entire territory of Ukraine, because it can be a possibility that an invasion from Europe can come from this direction. So they want to control the mountains of the Carpathians. Clear? So these are the two things. So the entire Ukraine is kind of a natural frontier or natural boundary of Russia. So they would like to take it again. Like in India, India, Pakistan also when we see, so we have the Hindu Kush mountains. We believe that India and Pakistan are natural, the Hindu Kush or the Himalayas are the natural frontier. So Pakistan should have been part of India in that sense. Right, so this is very, very important. Now with Ukraine wanting to be a part of NATO, an alliance that is against Russia, that is designed against Russia, if it becomes part of NATO, so that means the enemy is parked over here, very close to the Russian border. So this will never be liked. So they want to take control over this entire territory. Right? So we have the Crimean Peninsula once again. Why does Russia want to invade? So Crimean Peninsula, ethnic Russian population, Kyiv as the cultural hub. Then we have Ukraine's entry into NATO, which is a very sore point. In fact, when the Minsk agreement took place in 2014, then after Minsk agreement, there is the Normandy format. So when that took place again, The Russians said that Ukraine should not be allowed to enter into NATO, else there is a war that is imminent. And then insecurity due to NATO. NATO is an alliance against Russia, so they have an insecurity. Now coming back to this concern, so I have covered the why. Now recently, now the next question arises, is a war really imminent between Russia, Ukraine, as now USA also? Maybe not. There seems a possibility that a dialogue may take place. In fact, already talks are taking place between the various countries. Normandy format is very active. Then Washington DC and Russia, some sort of talks are taking place. So maybe things will resolve. Now Russia has raised the concern. So on one end they are saying that, see, NATO is a Cold War relic. It was created during the Cold War because the USA and the European countries had a concern that there will be an invasion from Russia. So they had a concern. Now they say that since USSR is not there, the disintegration has taken place. So NATO makes no sense. It was created during the Cold War era. Now this is always a threat against us and it can be used against us. Now Ukraine is a buffer region. What if Ukraine falls to NATO? Then what will we do? This is a concern. And one more point that I've just mentioned now, Ukraine is a buffer between Europe and Russia. In fact, it is part of the Europe only. Okay, so NATO. And during this time, during the Cold War times, the USA had created the Warsaw Pact. Like the NATO, there was the Warsaw Pact, an alliance created by Russia and the Eastern European countries against NATO. Right, so this is a concern. So this is concern number one. And the other concern is that when the 2014 war had taken place, war of Donbas had taken place, USA had imposed sanctions on Russia. That, see, if anybody trades or anybody has a relationship with this country, then we are cutty with that. Okay? That we will not have good relations with that country. That country will be deemed as an adversary of India, adversary of USA. And this complicates our relationship, I mean, with Indian perspective also now, since I've said this. Now, let's say India wants to buy the S-400 missiles from Russia. So USA is saying that we have sanctioned this country, you cannot trade with that. You cannot buy this missile. So it is complicating our relationship, and India-Russia relationship and India-US relationship. Right, so these two things are over here. So this creates a problem. And with reference to Russia, we have so many military equipments that have come from Russia. One, just speaking from the defense point, now we are talking about the India's concerns. So one is the defense cooperation. So many of our things like Sukhoi, MiGs, etc. are coming from Russia. And we are dependent on the spare parts, and maybe we want more openings also with defense. They are very advanced in their technology. So we want that. Right, but because of the sanctions, it affects our relationship over here. And Russia has traditionally been our ally, been our friend. But this US complication, US sanctions complicates the problem over here. Okay, so this is it. And one more thing is that India and USA are, in the recent times, especially with the Manmohan Singh era, then now continuing with Prime Minister Modi, USA and India are very, very close friends, and they're quite vocal about it. Like the Quad grouping is there with reference to the South China Sea and the extension of the Quad. So we are being aligned with the USA, and this further complicates the relationship with Russia. Right, so these are some concerns with us. Now coming back to the sanctions, because I want to cover this other headline also, address Russia's legitimate concerns, China tells USA. So China has come into the picture. Right, these points should be clear. India, US relationship, US-Russia relationship affects India. Now coming back to the Chinese perspective. Why is China entered into the picture altogether? Yes, US-China relationship is bad, but not for Russia. They will not do this. They will not take a fight because of this. Basically, it's being seen that China is making Russia its bunny. So when the sanctions were imposed, Russia's economy was closed. It was closed to the world in a way, because USA, the most powerful country, is sanctioning it. So no country wants to take tensions. They want to be on the bad looks of Russia. So they didn't want this. So their money was frozen, their economy was coming down, their currency was getting devalued, so there was a problem. So at this time, China offered them a credit aid of $36 billion, and maybe even more has been given over the years. So this I'm talking about 2014. Significant amount of money. And China will never do anything for free. So Russia, which is a great, it has lot of oil reserves, and China is an energy dependent country, energy hungry country. It's a growing country. So they will provide them oil, but $36 billion is still a very big amount, and Russia cannot spend this money, right? They cannot spend, they cannot buy from other people. This is a foreign currency. So what will they do with it? So China said that, see, there are things that you want. There are a lot of things like merchandise is there, automobiles, so many things are there. You want it. All countries want it. The people want it. So China will supply it. China, being the manufacturer of the world, is well placed for this. Right? So somewhere the Russian economy is sustaining because of this. But the problem arises that Russia somehow becomes a bunny of China, even though it's much more technologically advanced, much more powerful. But Russia is now dependent on China. And China does not have good relationship with India. So US, Russia, there's a triangle that is there, US, Russia and India, and now comes China. See, here I've drawn this US, Russia, India, and then now China is complicating this relationship. How? So let's talk about this border issue that we have, right? We have a border issue, the Galwan issue took place. Now let's say India and China are in a conflict-like situation, or they are talking in a diplomatic forum at UN or any other place. It is quite likely that Russia will support China, right? Because China is providing them some sort of a support. India is in no position of helping it. So this is it. Then this is one area of concern. So and the other thing is, look at this, the South China Sea dispute that is taking place. So in this, basically there are the core countries, Japan, India, USA and Australia. They have come up together. They don't say it explicitly, but it is positioned against China's assertiveness in the navigation domain, in the sea domain. So to counter this Quad group actually came up. So this is an anti-China alliance, but then China will draw Russia into it. So this further complicates India-Russia relationship. Right? So it hampers our relationship with Russia, a close ally, very badly. So this is a problem. This is how it affects India. Now coming back to this question, now you should be able to answer this question. Explain the recent political developments on Ukraine. Tell the what all happened, what all is happening. Name the groupings that were there. And you can also read more about it from the Wikipedia, research about it. That will help with your prelims also. So this is it. So what? Then if you have to explain, you have to tell the why. So here we have what, then why does it concern us? This is basically the same headline on the front page. These are the factors that we discussed, right? Then is the war imminent? Maybe not. And when two big countries are there, nobody wants to really escalate this issue. If a strong country is there and a weak country is there, like USA, Afghanistan, war is possible. But you don't want to have a direct conflict. Two giants will not fight together. So maybe it's not imminent, it's just a threat perception. And in fact, going beyond actually, USA would like all these things because USA, it allows USA greater, it makes NATO more relevant. So European countries are dependent on USA. And furthermore, it allows the US manufacturing companies to sell their equipments to these countries. So such conflicts are very, very good, very, very suitable for USA. Okay, now its impact on world politics. So it is affecting the world politics. So naturally it is affecting NATO, Russia, Europe, US, Russia, right? It is affecting, and with special reference to India, these are the concerns you have to jot down. You have to mention over here. You have to explain this complicated matrix. Right then, so this essentially covers the topic Ukraine-Russia border, and more or less this is what you're going to need. In addition, what you can do is you can refer to the atlas, you can refer to the maps over here, but I think everything is still covered here. So this is it from my side. Bye bye, take care, and all the best. And by the way, this creativity is on Instagram, so you can follow our Instagram page. So I thought I'll share this pointers on Instagram. Right, bye bye, take care, and all the best.